All right, let's go. Welcome to eCom Raw Reality episode 49. And in this one, we'll keep it simple. We'll talk as always about e-commerce, but more specifically, meta ads and the simple structure to actually have success with meta ads. And let me just show you, I guess, some receipts here, right? So basically showing you the proof that things are working here. And let me see. So this is Shopify store. Not sure if it's going to show up. It should. So right now it's almost middle of the day, like should be maybe 11 p.m. EST or 1 p.m. So 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. I'm not sure just because I'm not in the US right now, but making the conversion here. So 33k, so it might be a 100k day for this store. We'll have to see. And most of the traffic, the sales are coming from Meta. And as we might know, Meta is still one of the best platforms out there for almost any e-commerce brand. Almost any e-commerce brand out there has either Meta or I would say Google as their primary channel. It depends on a few factors. For example, if you're selling furniture, you might have success with Google just because people are already searching. But in most cases, if you're selling some kind of protein bar, right? No sponsorship or anything, just a random protein bar here. But if you're selling something that people might want, but they don't really need, then it's all about marketing, perception, beautiful visuals, and then making sure the offer is amazing, right? So let's talk about the simple ad structure for Facebook ad account, because the last video I was actually roasting media buyers, right? So basically people like myself who are in the ad account, try to do some ninja tactics to get the most out of it. And to keep it simple, this is how I think about it. It's definitely not the best way to go about it, because I'm sure I'm not the best media buyer. However, because I understand the other parts of the business, right, such as the MER, the overall conversion rate, AOV, so many things, right, that you need to take into account. Let me see if I can actually show you here the AOV and so on. So conversion rate, for example, if we look here at conversion rate today, it's actually lower than yesterday, but that's also because today we're definitely pushing more. We're pushing more traffic, so 85% more traffic than yesterday, and a 30% decline in conversion rate. So this is where you actually need to make sure that you're still profitable and don't overspend, because it's easy to make money. Just get as many eyeballs, have a decent offer, but it's not just about that. You also need to look at what's the ideal MER so you can make as much profit as possible while also gaining volume, right? Everyone wants more volume, more sales, but also more profit. It doesn't work like that. Let's be real. I mean, you can't be in Europe and in the US at the same time, right? Like you have to pick. It's the same here. And not to go too deep into other subjects here, let's look at the simple ad account structure and the logic behind it. So as we know, Meta is a creative platform, right? So that's why one of the best things, and Meta has actually recently, so right now we are in April, end of April 2025, and Meta has just released, after so much time, a guide mentioning that if Advantage Plus doesn't work, which of course it doesn't work, because yeah, it's not just about like throwing creatives in one place and hoping for the best, right? Hope is not the strategy. And they just released some article recently mentioning that if Advantage Plus doesn't work, which of course doesn't work because that's not the best structure to actually test creatives, you would ideally have a creative testing ABO campaign. And why is that? Well, because it offers you control, and control with almost anything is what gives you power, right? The power to actually decide or find out which is the creative that works best. Because if you just like throw all the creatives in one campaign, Advantage Plus campaign, one of them, maybe max two, will get most of the spend. And that means that the others won't get spent even if they are, let's say, all of the 5 creatives that you have in an Advantage Plus campaign. 5 of them are all winners. Like you could put any of them in an ad account out there and they would crush it, right? But it's just like having the best 5 people at something in the same room. For example, a basketball team. You have 5 of the best all on the same team if you watch basketball. The thing is that if at the end of the game you score 100 points, right? What's the likelihood that all of them will score over 50 points? 0, because it doesn't work like that, right? Like math isn't mathing. So the question is, what will happen? Will someone actually take the lead and actually score 50 points and the others will score like 15 points each? Or each of them will score 20 points. Either way, you will lose. Why? Well, because you don't give each of them a fair chance to like maximize their potential, because you are putting all of them on the same team. So someone will actually be better. Even if maybe if you put all of them on different teams, they might all be all NBA first team players, right? Like the best of the best. But if you put them all in one team, one of them will just be outshined by the others, even though they might be like actually the top 5 in the world, right? So it's the same with creatives. If you put all of them in one ad set, even if one of them is 0.01% better, it will get more spend. So that's why ideally you have a creative testing ABO campaign. That was a long-winded way to actually say that you should test creatives individually if you actually care about them. If you actually like invested in them. That's what I mean by care. Like not actually caring emotionally, but logically. If you paid 1,000 for each creative, for example, then you would ideally test them individually, because they could all be winners. They could all be worth that 1K in spend for the creative. However, if you put them all in one campaign, it's kind of disrespectful for some of them, because they won't get spent even if they are good ads and good performance maybe. And that's why creative testing should be one of the main ways to actually start an ad account if you don't have just like all of the money in the world to spend, right? Like if you're Apple, then you could just throw all the creatives around and all fairy daisy, it will be good because no one looks at performance, right? But if you care about performance, if you care about precision, about 2.5 ROAS instead of 2.3, then it really matters. So the simple way is creative testing campaign. And then what would you do? Well, if you have winners, multiple winners, and you kind of have a hard time actually like having the budget changed all the time, ideally you do have a scaling campaign. So, and this is, I think, what I've learned from one of my mentors in terms of like how to think about it many years ago. And that would be taking the winners and graduating them into a scaling campaign. And how you handle a scaling campaign, it depends. You could have it as a CBO, you could have it as an Advantage Plus. There's no best way to do it. I mean, the creative testing, you could actually do it in an Advantage Plus campaign. So there are so many things that you could do. You have enough freedom, but it's more so like the first principle here that we're thinking of. It's like, all right, we're actually testing creatives. If you do it in Advantage Plus, ABO campaign, who cares? Doesn't matter. Same result, more or less. And after you do the creative testing, you graduate the winners, and that's how you try to find what works and then pour more fuel to the fire. So first you need to find the fire and then just put more gas on it and let it burn, right? And that's the simple way to think about it. Then you could go into a more defensive approach, meaning that you use cost caps when, for example, you aren't sure or you have a tight budget. That's when you would have the creative testing campaign, the scaling campaign, which you wouldn't really have at a higher budget. And then you would have, maybe you could call it, as an example, scaling campaign, and then it's a cost cap. And that, for example, won't really spend as much if you put a lower cost cap. for example, if you know that ideally in the ad account you have a cost per purchase of around $25, $30, you could actually put the number somewhere in between. Where exactly, no one knows. That's why media buyers exist. That's why growth strategists and so on exist, because Meta won't do it for you. Like, you actually need someone to go there in the ad account, put a number, right, our best guess, and then based on that, try to adjust it. It's just like with an airplane. It goes from point A to point B, but it doesn't go straight all the time. It goes a few, even a few centimeters if it moves more to the right or the left from the beginning, and it continues to go on that route, then the gap widens, right? Because you go in the wrong direction, and if you go only just a little bit, it compounds. It's basically just like with investing. If you invest $100 for a very long time, it will become millions, just because it stacks up. It stacks up and it goes in one direction, and that's up. Of course, if you spend more than you make, it's the opposite. It goes down. So this is just basic math, but thinking on a longer time horizon. So to recap, with the meta ad structure, this is the easiest and I mean one of the best ways to go about it. Even if you're like a 9-figure, 8-figure, 0-figure brand just starting out, this is one of the best. And there are more ways to go about it. There is more nuance to it, of course, but this is one simple way to think about it. Because after that, if you have multiple products, yeah, you could have like a creative testing campaign for that product, for that angle, for that collection. So you can go many ways, many routes, I would say, with this approach. But at the end of the day, it's more or less the same type of thinking, first principles thinking. Testing, scaling, and scaling defensively when necessary, and scaling more offensively, aggressively, when you can do it. So that's pretty much it for this one. If you enjoyed it, you can also watch the previous ones or the ones that came after this one. And until next time, peace out.